Namaste Girirajaya Shri Govardhana Namine Ashesh Klesha Nashaya Paramananda Daine Giriraj
Hare Krishna. Welcome to Sri Vrindavan Dham. Welcome to Govardhan. On behalf of the Vrindavan Institute for Higher Education, I warmly welcome you all to the Govardhana Retreat 2022. This event began in 2002, bringing devotees at the foot of Giriraj for a series of lectures and kirtans. The aim of the Govardhana Retreat is to increase our attachment for Krishna. In the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada writes that there are 5 most potent forms of devotional service. Hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, chanting the holy name, associating with devotees, worshipping the deity, and residing in Mathura Mandala. He says that these 5 forms of devotional service are so potent that they can arouse attraction for Krishna, devotional ecstasy in the heart of even a neophyte person. So you're welcome to this event. For the last 2 years, we have been conducting these events online due to the global world situation. To obtain residence in Vrindavan is definitely a blessing. It is said that the forests of Vrindavan, which are so beautifully situated on the banks of the river Jamuna, are so attractive due to their spiritual nature that anyone who comes here will never want to return to the material world. You may say, well, the problem is we cannot go to Govardhan. But that is not true. Because Srila Rupa Goswami has explained, and Srila Prabhupada has further taught us that residence in the Dham does not depend on our physical presence in the Dham. We can reside in the Dham through the medium of our mind. Our mind can bring us here. Again, in the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada writes that simply by desiring to be in Vrindavan, simply by thinking of Vrindavan, remembering Vrindavan, simply by glorifying the land of Vrindavan, simply by touching the land of Vrindavan just once, all our spiritual desires can be fulfilled. The aim of the Govardhana Retreat is to bring your mind, our mind, to Vrindavan, at the foot of Govardhan. The sun is very pleasantly setting at this moment in Govardhan. The atmosphere is very quiet. During this retreat, we are going to use two paths to bring you to Vrindavan. One is the path of the ear, Shrutik Shritapatha. You will be hearing the beautiful, deep presentations of the leaders of the Govardhana Retreat. His Highness Satchidanand Swami, His Grace Burijan Prabhu, Her Grace Jagatarini Mataji, and His Grace Madhavananda Prabhu. They will be lecturing on various topics, all meant to churn our heart, churn our consciousness, and bring us at the foot of Giriraj. Srila Satchidanand Maharaj will be awakening in our heart divine aspirations based on the writings of Srila Rupa Goswami. Burijan Prabhu will be speaking about a test along the way, and specifically he'll be drawing from Srila Sanatana Goswami's mysterious journey from Vrindavan to Vrindavan. Her Grace Jagatarini Mataji will delight us speaking about Vrindavan in a very specific way. Vrindavan, the most dangerous place in the world. And His Grace Madhavananda Prabhu will directly be chanting the glories of Govardhan, drawing from the Govardhan Dashakam of Raghunath Das Goswami. He will be speaking this year specifically on the rasa of Giriraj with Krishna. So these are our topics for this year, and this will be brought to us through the path of the ear. We will use yet another path to bring you to Govardhan and to Vrindavan, and that is the path of the eyes. We have prepared for you wonderful images of Vrindavan, and if you sit tight and focus on the presentations and on the videos which will be streamed, you will be visiting this time Apsara Kund, Bhavan Sarovar, Sri Radha Kund, and of course Govardhan, especially very secret places that you have never seen before. May I give a little indication? For example, we are going to walk through the jungle and discover Giriraj as he emerges from the earth. We will see the very first Shilas and how Giriraj, from just a small stone or Shila in the ground, becomes a hill. We will see the Chandan Shila. We all have heard how the Gopas and the Gopis used to decorate themselves with mineral pigments taken from the hill. You may have wondered, how can that be? Well, in this retreat, you will see the reddish pigment emerging from the Shila, the Chandan Shila of Giriraj. I mention only these two places. There will be more places, secret places, beautiful places, Brajatilak Darshan. We will also be going on one of the days to a very special place, most dear to the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, that is their Kadamba. The place of Srila Rupa Goswami's bhajan, where he wrote the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and some other literatures. We will show you aspects of their Kadamba that you have never seen. We will be in the forest, retracing the steps of Srila Rupa Goswami as he sat there and walked there, chanting the holy name. But there are a few conditions that you need to fulfill in order to actually achieve the purpose of the Govardhana Retreat. You must not take this retreat as just another regular class online. It is not a class online. It is an opportunity to absorb your consciousness in Vrindavan Dham. It is an opportunity to come to Vrindavan, to become attracted to this beautiful land. So this will require, number one, that you dedicate the time. You have to take off from your other activities and focus. Be attentive. Be present. Secondly, you must establish a sacred space where you will be sitting and watching and hearing. Remember, two paths, the path of the ear and the path of the eyes. Last year we had wonderful reports coming from all over the world. People setting up a tent, people transforming their living room into a retreat space. Even if you just establish a sitting place in your apartment, that is sufficient, or in your garden. Time, space, and maybe a little prayer. A prayer to Giriraj to let you come close to him. Namaste Girirajaya Shri Govardhana Namine Ashesha Klesha Nashaya Paramananda Dayane. We offer our respectful obeisances to the King of Mountains. He destroys all miseries and bestows the highest bliss for those who come and take shelter of him. So please take this retreat as a retreat. Retreat means, our teachers will elaborate further on the meaning of retreat. Retreat means that you actually retreat from your daily routine activities and open a new space within which something special can happen. Again, welcome to all of you. The retreat starts right now. Today is the first day out of 5 days of residence at the foot of Govardhana. Today we are first going to have the opening of the retreat, during which Sachinandan Maharaj, Purijan Prabhu, Jagatarini Mataji will give you an entrance into the Dham and into the concepts of having a retreat. Next we shall hear about their classes, which they themselves will present. And we will be going to two different places. Apsarakund in the rainy season and Pavan Sarovar to witness a day in the pastimes of Krishna. And today is also the first class which will be given by His Grace Madhavananda Prabhu on the subject of Giriraja's Rasa with Krishna. The next days will be full with 3 classes per day and all the images of Raj. So we wish you a wonderful time. We thank you very much for coming, for allowing us to perform this service. Thank you so much, and may the retreat begin. Shri Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Satchidananda Maharaj, Hare Krishna. I can't
Hare
resist.
Krishna. Burijam Prabhu, you must be in Australia at the moment.
Yes, indeed.
Here you are.
You are in Berlin.
I am in Berlin, yes. And we somehow try to bring our consciousness to Giriraj and to serving these wonderful devotees. I want to greet you affectionately, Burijam Prabhu, and all of the, and Jagatarini is also with us. Hare Krishna Jagatarini. And I want to greet all the devotees who are coming online to participate in this great adventure, to go onto a retreat in our mind. I wanted to give you a little introduction to what we are going to do, so that you can really derive the greatest possible benefit from your participation for the next days in our retreat. To go on retreat is something that needs to be given our attention to. It's not something which we usually do. It is something where we break the routine of our often repetitive lives to make a new experience. I cannot express it in better words than in the words of the writer Richard Rohr, who wrote, retreat is where we are betwixt and between the familiar and the completely unknown. There alone is our world left behind, while we are not yet sure of the new existence. That's a good space where genuine newness can begin. Get there often and stay as long as you can by whatever means possible. And then he describes how when we go on retreat, we enter a sacred space where a better, more spiritual, a more Krishna-conscious world can unfold and manifest. And he compares this space with a waiting room, the waiting room of God, where we are staying in order to have an appointment with the divine doctor. So much of our lives is repetitive. We think the same thoughts, we make the same decisions, we do the same activities, and as a result we develop certain habits, and our life becomes stagnant. Stagnant may be like a river which does not flow but which has a dam, or stagnant like the lines in marble which cannot move. And therefore, because some of us are coming into the stagnant place, spiritual growth seems to be very difficult at times. Of course, we always hear the call, but what do we do to break out and flow again? Or what do we do in order to draw new lines in our lives? Well, one thing is that life itself jolts us out and throws us out. A sudden disease, a loss of a near and dear one, or even the loss of our bicycle, which we need to go to our places, that can sometimes jolt us forcibly out of our routines. But we have a better idea in mind than waiting for a crisis or something heavy to happen. Go on retreat. Prabodhananda Saraswati mentions especially one place to go to. He says, "Oh friend, by great good fortune, you have attained this human body where you have already heard about Vrindavan's wonderful glories and learned that everything in this world is like a dream. Do not put any faith in the mind and in the body, but run to Vrindavan." With our Govardhana Retreat, we want to give you a facility, a possibility to run to Vrindavan on these two paths which Prashanta mentioned. One is the Shrutekshita Panta, the path of hearing, and the second is we will actually put a few fresh live videos how Giriraj looks at the moment and how the holy places look at the moment here on the computer. And by these two paths, it should be possible for you to get the experience of going on retreat. Now, in order to make this really work for each one of us, I would like to make a few suggestions. And I feel this is very important. First of all, I request you to look up the schedule of the Govardhana Retreat. I have my schedule here for the German time zone, but there is a schedule for each time zone of around the world, the global situation. And then when you have looked at the schedules, please carve out time from your busy schedules, what you usually do, and really say, this is an investment in eternity. Yes, I know there are phone calls to do, I know there's work to do, I know there are many people who wish to meet me on the phone, or there is this interesting program or anything going on. No, you have to carve out the time for the retreat, because believe it or not, spiritual progress happens often in installments, like we do every day our japa and our reading and certain spiritual practices, and they accumulate throughout the years and our life, and then give us a culminative result. The retreat often works best if you are really there for the sessions and you keep on coming, and that will require that you really carve place in your schedule, a time and a place where you can be undisturbed and fully focused. But that's only the external, let me say, rule that helps you to make most of the retreat. There's something that has to go on inside of you. And I really want to make this very, very, let me say, understandable and relatable. You need to connect with the more than human dimension. I express it purposefully in such vague terms. Connect with the more than human dimension. Obviously, this is the Krishna conscious dimension. This is where Krishna is, where your relationship to Krishna is, where the eternal Vrindavan lies. Let us not forget, our material existence is here today and it will go. We will all depart from this realm. But while we live this human life, this temporary life, this life which is set, or which is full with the waves of material existence, where life throws things at us. While we do this, we have the unique opportunity to make a connection with the timeless, the eternal, the spiritual world, the world of Radha and Krishna and their loving associates. So how can we make this contact with the more than human dimension, with the dimension of Krishna consciousness? And I've written a few things down here as suggestions. Obviously, it is listening to the presentations, participating in the meditations, in the kirtans, and so on. But afterwards comes the very important personal work, which no lecture giver, no kirtaniya can do for you. It's your own turning to Krishna, your own prayers to Krishna, your own requests to move forward. This me time, so to say, or let us call it us time, me and Krishna. This time is very important to put in a retreat. See, the retreat creates a gap from your ordinary lives. You're carving out time, you're listening about subjects that you usually are not so much listening to. You're thinking about ultimate thoughts. That all this creates a gap, so to say, in your life. But this gap needs now to be filled with each one of us. And my dear listeners, my dear participants, we need to give special attention to this dimension of the retreat, this personal or private dimension, because we are sitting in our homes before the computer. We are not sitting on the grass of Vrindavan or in the Pandal where we can see Giriraj. We are not in that atmosphere where we are participating, so to say, live in Vrindavan with our physical presence. No, it's a virtual retreat, and therefore we are a little on our own here to create this personal connection with the more than human world, the more than temporary world, the world which is beyond the ups and downs. Having said this, I wish you all the best on these 3 paths to Vrindavan. The first, hearing. The second, seeing the video presentations, and I'm sure I mean, already I saw the first presentation with Prashanta on the roof of Balakrishna Bhavan and Giriraj in the background. This is the first, this is the second path which you can take. But the third part is the path where you go through your own heart, through prayers, through turning sincerely to Krishna, and in this way make a wonderful retreat experience. Thank you very much. I now will give the microphone to a person who is very dear to my heart, our Bhurijam Prabhu, who's now in Australia. So please speak, Bhurijam Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Satyanandana Maharaj. That was a very wonderful welcome to the retreat and very inspiring as well. Very inspiring, reminding us of the purpose of the retreat and actually bringing us into the presence of that purpose. This won't be my time to speak about the retreat exactly, but it is my time to open up a well-worn book and read something that every Govardhana retreat, when we're on top of Balakrishna Bhavan, that I've taken to reading. And it'd be so nice if you could all respond at the right times, but that might not be practical at all. But this is something that Srila Rupa Goswami has written, Sri Kesava Astakam. And these are 8 prayers glorifying Lord Kesava. And it's especially appropriate at the time, at this time in Vrindavan, because the sun is setting and we're looking at Giriraj. We're looking at Giriraj and looking at all the devotees there. And it's very, very, very sweet. We're watching the parikramis, the devotees walk on the path of Giriraj Govardhan into Jatipura. And we usually read this wonderful prayer of Rupa Goswami, Sri Kesava Astakam. 8 prayers glorifying Lord Kesava. I worship Lord Kesava, coming back from the forest of Braja. He wears a Priyaka flower earrings, a crown of fully blossomed malati flowers, and a Brahman thread of small, charming jasmine flowers. What a image, what a picture of Krishna returning in such a wonderful way from herding the cows. Second verse. I happily worship Lord Kesava, coming back from the forest of Braja. He happily calls his straying Sarabi cows. Oh Pashangi, oh Manikastini, oh Pranatashringi, Pingekshana, Madangamuki, oh Dumana, oh Shabali, Hamsi, Vamsi, Priya. Oh, when all the devotees say this on top of Balakrishna Bhavan, they all respond in such a wonderful way to these sounds, and all the unhappiness in the heart vanishes. So in honor of that wonderful experience, even though maybe you could turn everyone on just for a moment so we can hear their responses, but repeat after me. Oh Pashangi!
Oh Pishangi,
Oh Manikastini!
oh Manikastini,
Oh Pranati Singhi!
oh
Singhi!
Pishangi,
Oh Pingekshana!
oh
Krishna!
Krishna,
Oh Madangamuki!
Oh,
oh
Vedangamuki!
Vedangamuki,
just imagine what the cows are
Om
doing when Krishna.
Mridangam-mukhi.
Now with everybody and unmute
Just
Buddhism.
imagine the happiness of the cow.
And unmute Buddhism people quickly.
Okay. Oh, Dumala!
Oh,
Dumla!
Oh, Shabali!
Oh,
Shamali!
Shamali!
Vamsi! Vamsi!
Vamsi,
Priya!
Vamsi,
Vamshi,
That sounded like Hungsi. And now the third verse. Also, Rupa Goswami's worship of Keshava coming back from the forest.
wait, wait.
Okay, better mute everyone else.
Okay, mute. Ratnam, mute everybody one time.
I
Prabhuji is also muted.
We can't hear you, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, you are muted.
okay. We have solved that problem. I worship Lord Keshava coming back from the forest on the pathways of Braj. With the best of words, he makes his splendidly dressed and affectionate friends, who are all expert at the art of pleasant jokes. He makes them smile and he makes them laugh. Verse 4. I worship Lord Keshava. Coming back from the forest of Braj, his cheeks are licked by a stream of perspiration. He's decorated with pictures drawn in mineral colors from the hill, and his curling locks of hair deride the splendor of a swarm of black bees. Verse 5. I worship Lord Keshava coming back from the forest of Braja. With the sweet sound of his flute, he calls the Sarabi cows, who, eager to see their young calves, break the ground with their heavy dancing hoofs. I worship Lord Keshava. Coming back from the forest of Braja, he beautifies the path with his lotus footprints. He wears a garland of dust raised by the wandering cows, and his garments and his peacock feathers move with the waves of the wind. I worship Lord Keshava, coming back from the forest of Braja. With the playful and sweet music of his flute, he delights the hearts of Braja's queen and makes all the gopis in their homes happy at heart. He makes the hairs of their bodies stand erect with joy. I worship Lord Keshava, coming back from the forest of Braja. He is worshipped by the gopis who mount the roofs of their palaces, and they meet him on the path with 100 manners of dancing glances and gentle smiles, and the corners of his eyes wander like large black bees around the bodies of the gopis. And now here's a verse of benediction. May Vishaka's friend Krishna give transcendental happiness and unwavering love for his lotus feet to the splendidly intelligent persons who attentively read and hear these 8 verses, which are a glorious festival for all of the gopis. Hare Krishna. You're muted, and we have to move the camera a little bit further on the screen right now. Yes. Hare Krishna. It's so nice to be here with everybody who I can't see, but I know that somehow or another, on the other side of this little machine, they're there. When I was thinking this morning and this afternoon how I wanted to share with you and what I wanted to say to encourage you to enter into the mood of this Govardhana Retreat, there was one thing that kept coming back to me. It was Srila Prabhupada. And I kept remembering how he was living in Vrindavan extremely simply, with very difficult circumstances, before he went to the West. And I was reflecting about how for every one of us who are here, whether we are directly or indirectly, our good fortune has been created by his journey to the West. And the challenges that he faced in those 15 or 20 years, actually 20 years before he arrived in America, are phenomenal. When I was getting ready for this retreat, once or twice I hit an obstacle. And one time I found that all the work that I had done throughout the day in preparing something to share with you had become somehow or other erased. I had lost it. It didn't save. And I was about to feel some despair. And then, even though there was the pressure and the tension of deadlines and hoping to do something wonderful for all of you, I kept thinking about Srila Prabhupada and how many setbacks he underwent, and how, practically speaking, nobody knew what he was about to do. Nobody knew. I'd like to read you just a little passage from something I found while I was researching for my retreat presentation. This is from Satsarup Das Goswami, Srila Satsarup Das Goswami. Is writing on his writing when he was preparing to write about Srila Prabhupada. And he says, I'm trying to speak something about the meaning of those years, how no one suspected he would do what he did, nor could anyone else do it, nor could anyone in Vrindavan even dream of such a thing. He went and conquered the Westerners.
So he continued in his reflections in his diary, because he was meditating on how to present Srila Prabhupada. And he continued to say that it was as if Prabhupada became grander and grander and bigger and more magnificent than he was in 1956. He became the world Acharya, Jagat Guru, so many disciples, so many properties, so much travel, so much awe, respect, and dedication was offered at his feet. And there he was in 1956, living in Vrindavan, an exemplary life. So he made a point. He said, it appeared that he became grander and more magnificent than he was in 1956, that he grew more and more. But he was already pure. So we have to show him, or we have to experience him in that dramatic tension, the dramatic tension of the present with the future still unknown. So this was something that came to me as a result of my preparation for this year's retreat. And I will share more of this with you when we speak further about the presentations themselves. I hope that all of you can take the time and find a way to symbolically make this time special. Set aside a place to sit, make some kind of definition that for me this year, this retreat is going to be so significant that it's going to make a radical change in my life. There's the opportunity. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Sajinandana Maharaj, we can't hear you.
Yes, can you hear me now? Am I now?
Yes, yes.
Oh, good. Thank you very much, Agatarini. Really, by bringing us back to Vrindavan at the time of 1956, where Srila Prabhupada was living an exemplary life of a devotee of Krishna. I remember he went to all the Goswami temples every day, and he chanted and he wrote and he prepared himself to give us, to conquer the Western hearts with Vrindavan. He had something very important to export, so to say, that is Braj Bhakti. Thank you very much, and thank you also for inspiring and motivating us to to connect with this, to connect with Vrindavan, to connect with Srila Prabhupada's gift and with Srila Prabhupada, and make this a time where change for the better can take place. Yes, we should. What Jagatarini said is maybe the first law of spiritual advancement that is explained by Krishna as Yeya Tamang Papadyante, and the degree you surrender to me, I reward you. So whatever you put into the retreat, that will decide or determine what comes back to you from Lord Krishna. It's a unique opportunity. I will just briefly, before we bring you again to Vrindavan by your eyes and show you a video.
Sajinandana Maharaj,
Yes?
there was something I was supposed to read before you end that, or speak.
Well, if that is so, then please read also. But please be aware, we are moving on a tight schedule here.
But I was on the schedule. So I wanted to read something that really inspired me, quite surprisingly, this morning when I was thinking about what I should speak of about entering the retreat. So these are a few verses from the chapter that I've been that I will be speaking about. And this is after Srila Sanatana Goswami gets to Jagannath Puri and Mahaprabhu meets him there along with Haridas Thakur for the first time. And after they have their initial exchange, Mahaprabhu says to Sanatana Goswami, "It is very good that you have arrived here. Now, stay in this room. You stay in this room with Haridas Thakur." And then the question is, what should they do while they're in this room together? And Mahaprabhu says something so wonderful. Krishna Bhakti Rase Dunhe Parama Pradhan. Krishna Rasa Aswadana Kore Laha Krishnanam. Both of you are expert in understanding the mellows of Lord Krishna's devotional service. Both of you are expert in understanding Krishna Bhakti Rasa. Therefore, what should you do when you're in that room? You should both continue relishing the taste for such activities. Relish what you are already expert in, Krishna Bhakti Rasa, and chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Laha Krishnanam. Having said this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got up and left. And through Govinda, he sent prasadam for them to eat. Every day he sent that. And in this way, Sanatana Goswami stayed under the care of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Every day he would see the wheel on the pinnacle, the chakra on the Jagannath temple, and he would offer his respectful obeisances. He wouldn't enter. Every day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would go there to meet these two stalwart devotees, Srila Sanatana Goswami and Srila Haridas Thakur, and discuss topics of Krishna with them for some time. And every day, he would bring offerings, prasadam offerings of Lord Jagannath of the highest quality. He would bring these and deliver these to these two great devotees. So while I was, what really struck me with this, and it comes up quite a few times in this amazing chapter, what really struck me is that these two great souls, or three, the greatest souls, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sanatana Goswami, and Haridas Thakur, they're chanting together. They're speaking together about Krishna, and they're hearing about Krishna. They're associating together, and they're associating with Krishna at the same time through Krishna Katha. And then the question came to my mind, and perhaps it will come to your mind, would you like to have been present with them? Imagine what it would be like to somehow participate. And then the question came to my mind, well, where would I like to sit? How would I participate? So Haridas Thakur and Sanatana Goswami sat below Mahaprabhu. He sat on a raised platform and they sat on his feet. Sometimes it says he sat on a holy place or an altar. But where would I feel appropriate to sit in their presence? Perhaps like a fly on the wall, or some kind of a bug, or one of those Jagannath Puri ants who somehow managed to find the Mahaprasadam regardless of where you hide it. But in any case, somehow or another to hear their words, not to interact directly with them. I certainly wouldn't be qualified for that. They're speaking on such a level. But to hear their words and observe how they interacted as they opened their Krishna prem-filled hearts, that would be such a great fortune. So if I was present in some way or another, by some fortune or another, what type of consciousness would I like to have being present before them? And if I was here now, and if I knew in advance that they would be speaking together, and somehow or another I knew I would be allowed to attend, what preparation would I make to prepare my consciousness to be there with them? So what I would like to say is that right now we have that opportunity to prepare. Because in the following days, we will be granted permission to peer very carefully, to look very carefully into the heart of Srila Rupa Goswami through his poems from Stavamala in His Holiness Sachinanda Maharaj's presentation. And we will hear both Srila Sukadev Goswami and Srila Prabhupada's, we will hear them revel in the sweetness of the rainy season of Vrindavan through Jagatrini Mataji's presentation. We will gain a glimpse of the devotion that Srila Raghunath Das Goswami possesses as he poetically speaks of his worshipable shelter, Sri Giriraj Govardhana, in Madhvananda Prabhu's presentation. And we can be present to witness the mysterious exchanges between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sanatana Goswami, and Haridas Thakur. Well, they were all in Jagannath Puri in my presentation. So we pray that all of our devotional moods will be nourished through being present and participating in this Krishna Katha. Please meditate on what could make your absorption as ideal as is practical during this virtual Govardhana retreat. Please try your best. Enter into the spirit of the retreat with as much focused attention and absorption as you can gather. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very, very much, Purijan Prabhu. That was really powerful. Yeah, when you asked the question, where would you sit when you would observe the exchanges of these three greatest personalities, and how would you prepare yourself? Now, that was a powerful, let us say, it drew us into what we want to create during the Govardhana Retreat. We want to create these powerful discussions where we present to you not so much our own words, but the words or the inspirations and motivations and the texts from these great personalities, so that you will get the maximum benefit. Wow, thank you. I know these classes are very well prepared and they all have the Vrindavan charm in them. So they will be extremely powerful. I will be there. I will be there for each one of them. Yes, before we end this session, let me just briefly say something about mental residence in Vrindavan. As we know, we will not be able to be in Vrindavan with our physical bodies, but we want to create an atmosphere like it is done during the Govardhana Retreat that allows you to come there in your mind. Residing in Vrindavan has always been by our acharyas as being very special. In his Mathura Stava, in the first verse, Rupa Goswami says, Mukter Govinda Bhakta Vitaran Chaturam Sachitananda Rupam Yasyam Vidyoti Vidya Yugalam udayate tarakam parakam cha. What he says is, in Mathura, there are two forms, two energies moving about, the Taraka Shakti and the Paraka Shakti. One form is able to bestow liberation from this material world, and the second is able to give Govinda Bhakti. In other words, just by touching the land of Vrindavan, either with the body or with your mind, you can contact these two powerful energies of Krishna. The Taraka Shakti, which liberates you from your tensions, your inner limitations, and the Paraka Shakti, that energy which will give you Govinda Bhakti, or devotion to Krishna. Prabodhananda Saraswati is most probably the Acharya who has written most extensively about Vrindavan Dham. I heard in one book, the most famous for us, the Vrindavan Mahimamrita, there are 1,780 plus verses about amazing descriptions of Vrindavan. And I want to read you one of them. When Krishna smiles his sweet smile, he creates a wonderful bright garland in the sky of kunda flowers. When Krishna looks, then with his eyes, then everywhere the earth, then everywhere lotus flowers appear in all directions, because Krishna has lotus eyes. And when Krishna walks through the land of Vrindavan, the Vrindavan land is marked or stamped with the impressions of his lotus feet, where there are also lotus flowers. And so this is a powerful image. Krishna smiles, and from his teeth, white kunda flower-like atmosphere is created in the sky. It looks very transparent. Who can say this in the world, that someone smiles and from their teeth everything becomes bright? I mean, yes, there is advertisement, shiny teeth, buy this toothpaste, no? but the whole sky cannot be illuminated by anyone, except for Krishna. He smiles and the whole sky becomes bathed in a very wonderful, bright color. When Krishna looks with his lotus eyes around, everything takes on the qualities of the lotus flowers: fragrant, cooling, beautiful. And as Krishna walks with his feet, the land of Vrindavan gets stamped with these beautiful impressions which are on the feet. Yes, anyone who comes to Vrindavan feels something is in the sky, something is in the atmosphere, something is in the earth. And what this is the presence of Krishna that creates such an amazing atmosphere. Now, what can we do when we cannot be in this atmosphere which is informed by Krishna? Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur has a wonderful solution. He says, anyone who meditates on the sweet abode of Vrindavan becomes so dear to Radha and Krishna that they want to meet that person. So anyone who is just going there in his mind becomes somehow so dear to Radha and Krishna that they say, we want to invite him, we want to see him, we want to be close to him, and we want to give a present to him. There's another verse I will say. Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur gives a tip to everyone who cannot go. They should just think, we are a servant of you, Radharani. We are a servant of you, Krishna. And while we are in this mood, we are your servant, Radha and Krishna. We should do our worldly dealings with humility and turn our face as often as possible in the direction of Vrindavan, where we offer repeated obeisances with love and devotions. I do this most of the mornings. I will first thing turn my face in the direction of Vrindavan. I pay my obeisances to Vrindavan while when I get on the ground, and I pray to Krishna and to Radha. I'm your unfortunate servant. I'm still in the world here, but please throw your kindness, your kind, merciful glance in my direction. So this is the power of Vrindavan. If you only think about it in the mind, you are already there. During these online Govardhana Retreats, we want to bring you really to Vrindavan. And I think we were all totally astonished that this really works. Last year, around the same time, we also had this online retreat going on, and we were also doing more or less the same. We had fresh taken videos of Vrindavan, and we had our speakers speak directly from the Shastras about Vrindavan-related subject matters. And at the end of the retreat, we received an overwhelming feedback from the participants online who told us that they felt Vrindavan's presence. They really felt they were there. And I must say, I'm always, how can I say, I don't believe things so quickly because I have seen so many things come and go in my life, including enthusiasm and so on. But I also had to admit that when I participated, or as I participated in this formula, you know, hearing about Vrindavan and seeing Vrindavan, I was transported into another consciousness. And even here in Berlin, I felt I'm not in Berlin, I'm in Vrindavan. So this is an adventure. It's an adventure in consciousness. It's an ultimate adventure. We are here trying to do something which is not just another online lecture, which is not just another online presentation. We are trying to actually access the most sacred space in the universe, Vrindavan, while sitting before the computer and participating. And I invite you wholeheartedly to take part in this adventure and see for yourself how you can derive benefit from this. I'm aware, yes, now we will immediately go into our next video. It will be 5 minutes long, long, and there will be a special focus on the Mukut Shila. This is a stone, or how can we say, yes, a Giriraj rock, which is imprinted with the imprint of the crown of Lord Balaram. When Balaram was there, his crown came off his head because he was so much in ecstasy. He saw a particular ecstatic darshan of Radha and Krishna in the distance, and he shook in ecstasy, and his crown fell on this Govardhana Shila, which then was imprinted with Balaram's crown. So you will see this rock. Yes, we are ready to see the video now. Please show us.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
When the spring season arrived, Krishna began the rasa dance in the forest at Buchari, where Govardhan dives into the sands of Vraj and disappears.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna
Sitting atop the hill, Balaram became stunned as he watched the awesome beauty of Krishna's pastimes. fell from his head and bounced down the hill till it landed on a Shila. Upon being touched by Balaram's crown, the Shila melted, marked forever with a divine imprint. It became known as the Balaram Mukut Shila.
We have now entered the Govardhana Retreat space. I hope you appreciated the first darshan of Giriraj Govardhan, the Mukut Shila, very amazing impression in the stone, visible till today and worshipped by the Brijabasis and all the devotees who find out about the place. This is the first in a series of darshans of Giriraj, very special darshans of places which are not known to the public. We have entered the retreat and we have been facilitated for this by Sachinandan Maharaj, Burijan Prabhu, and Jagatarini Mataji. They will now be presenting their classes. And on behalf of all of you, we would like to warmly welcome them. We will now have all our 4 presenters together introducing their classes. I would also like to welcome some of the senior devotees who are present on the Zoom right now. If I did not mistake, we have His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami and His Holiness Bhakti Prabha Swami. I have also seen His Grace Savabhoma Prabhu, Her Grace Lakshmi Moni Mataji. We have seen Brajabihari Prabhu. So welcome to all of you. And let us turn towards our presenters. I will request the devotees who are with them in their respective places to please honor them on behalf of all of us with a garland and in this way express our gratitude to them for performing this wonderful service. Let us begin with Sachinandan Maharaj. Maharaj, are you there?
And I can see you, and I see the Govardhana Retreat poster and Giriraj next to you.
Yes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Wow. This
His
is
Holiness Sachinandan Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna. Just very briefly, it's so, we are really trying to make this as real as possible, and thank you very much. I have a real garland here, not a virtual one. I'm very much pleased to offer you a seminar this year where I let the voice of Rupa Goswami speak to you about the ultimate goal of Krishna consciousness and how to reach it. I have discovered his work, Utkalika Valari, a vine of aspirations, many years ago in my Krishna conscious reading, but failed to give it the attention which it deserves. This is the last of his works. It is called in poetry his swan song. When a swan dies, then just before he leaves this world, he will sing the most beautiful composition, the most beautiful song. So when a great acharya writes his last book, usually you will find the culmination of his practice, the culmination of his insights in this work. And I thought really that by helping all of us to associate with the mind and the heart of Rupa Goswami, something will color or will come into our own heart, and it will be transformed. The great yoga master Patanjali speaks about various ways in which one can attain meditative absorption, and one way is vitaraga vishayam vachittam. The mind becomes steady when one focuses on one who is free from material desires. And the Padma Purana picks up on this and says that simply by thinking of these exalted persons, one gets in his heart a little of their qualities. That's why we feel, when we hear about Srila Prabhupada, so much determination, so much clarity, so much direction and motivation, as if we are, when we hear about him, it's as if we are associating with them. Srila Prabhupada once spoke about associating with these great acharyas who have passed on. And I want to read you this. I take it from Satsvarup Maharaj's writings. Sitting on the old carpet, Srila Prabhupada spoke quietly and personally. I may be going, but Guru Maharaj and Bhaktivinoda are here. As he spoke, he looked towards a painting of his spiritual master and Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I have asked them to kindly take care of all of you, my spiritual children. The grandfather always takes care of the children much better than the father. Srila Rupa Goswami is one of these great grandfathers in our line, and Baladev Vidya Bhushana speaks about his ongoing impact on us. He says, if Rupa Goswami, who is an ocean of mercy, would not have written these series of prayers, These are, and we take prayers from this. No, the devotees would never had understood the qualities, form, and pastimes of Sri Krishna sufficiently. So by coming in contact with Srila Rupa Goswami's work, we will understand more about Krishna. But what is for me very important, something of Rupa Goswami's mood will rub off on us. See, when we hear Krishna Katha from speakers who speak from their own inspirations about Krishna's pastimes, our heart certainly becomes purified from the outside. However, if one hears Krishna Katha from these powerful saints, at that time something else than just an outer effect is created. It goes inside the heart and turns this inclination around, the inclination which we have, it's called Bahimati, the inclination which goes towards the outside world and away from Krishna. It becomes turned around when we hear from devotees of such high stature, and as a result, the nectarian messages of Krishna can go directly in our heart, and we progress very easily from Shraddha to Prema. I would like to give you an example. When you have a vessel that is turned upside and down, and you pour some water on it, that will wash the outside of the vessel. But now imagine the same cup or any other vessel is put into a rainstorm. Then we can often see that by the force of the rainstorm, the cup is turned around so that the water of the rain can fill gradually the pot. So when we come in contact with the powerful mood of Rupa Goswami and his powerful expressions, our heart, which has become disinclined and turned away from Krishna, is turning around, and by the nectarian shower of his words, the heart fills gradually from Shraddha up to Prema. And in this way, hearing from such great personalities, hearing about their ideas, and entering their mood is a spiritual therapy that is very, very powerful. So I do hope to do my job as good as I can. I'm praying already so that you can feel something. So whatever imperfections are there, they are certainly mine. But whatever you can feel and understand and come into your heart as filling you up, that is Rupa Goswami. So I very much warmly welcome you to these sessions. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Sachinandan Maharaj. We are looking forward to hear the works of Srila Rupa Goswami and your wonderful realizations. May I call upon His Grace Burijan Prabhu? Here he is.
Hare Krishna. I get my Vrindavan garland now. Hare Krishna.
Where is the garland? Yes, it is here.
This
It's
is on
very
behalf
fragrant
of
also.
all of us, of all those who are participating in the retreat.
Hare Krishna. I need to share a screen right now. I think let's see if technology works. Yes. I'm going to be speaking on something that struck me very deeply, and this is on the 4th chapter of Antya-lila. I've been studying Chaitanya Charitamrita for quite a while now, and to tell you the truth, I'm a bit shocked at how powerful it is and how deep it is and what a gift Prabhupada gave us in giving Chaitanya Charitamrita. And in Antya-lila, the first chapter, the Antya-lila really begins in chapter 16 of Madhya-lila. And I would like to trace through technology the travels of Mahaprabhu and Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. Let's see if we can actually do it. Because this has always been very intriguing to me. Can you see? Yes, India. Now, the trick will be if we get it to begin. So here, when Mahaprabhu in the 16th chapter of Madhya-lila, Mahaprabhu begins to go. He wants to go to Vrindavan, and he goes to Shantipur, and then his real mission is to meet Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Sanatana Goswami and Ramakeli, and he captures them completely. They were already devotees, but he captures them more. And then after, he goes back to Shantipur, and in Shantipur, he meets Raghunath Das Goswami, who comes from Panihati, and becomes completely inspired to give up everything and go to attain the shelter of the feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then Mahaprabhu goes back to Jagannath Puri. And then after some time, he goes to the Jarikhanda forest, and this is described in the 17th chapter, and he goes to Benares. He spends 4 days in Benares, then he goes to Prayag, and then he goes to Vrindavan. And in Vrindavan, he only spends 2 weeks, but it is an ecstatic 2 weeks. But practically speaking, as Kaviraj Goswami says, that when he's not in Vrindavan, just the mere mention of the word Vrindavan would send him into ecstasy. So the whole time he's in Vrindavan, he's in complete ecstasy, and it became dangerous for his well-being. So his servants and associates there, they decided it's time we bring that Mahaprabhu out of Vrindavan after only 2 weeks. So Mahaprabhu then leaves Vrindavan, and he goes back to Prayag. And in Prayag, and we can see over here, Rupa Goswami, after leaving Bengal, he leaves and he's going to meet Mahaprabhu in Prayag. And Mahaprabhu spends 10 days in Prayag, and he instructs Rupa Goswami there. And that is the basis of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Then Rupa Goswami goes to Vrindavan on Mahaprabhu's order, and Mahaprabhu then goes to Benares, and there he meets Srila Sanatana Goswami. So this meeting with Sanatana Goswami, there's of course much detail attached to that, but his meeting with Sanatana Goswami, he instructs him for 2 months there. And this is very, very powerful instructions. And so much of our spiritual life is covered there. And all of Sambandha Prayojana, Sambandha Abhidaya Prayojana is given to Sanatana Goswami. And also in Benares, he changes the hearts of the Mayavadi sannyasis. And then And then Mahaprabhu goes back through the Jharikanda forest to Jagannath Puri. Rupa Goswami doesn't stay in Vrindavan very long, but Sanatana Goswami goes to Vrindavan, but they go on different paths. Rupa Goswami travels on the same path that Mahaprabhu traveled on when he went from Vrindavan to Prayag, and Sanatana Goswami goes on the public road. So they miss each other. Sanatana Goswami stays in Vrindavan for 1 year, but Rupa Goswami goes to Benares and he can't find either his brother Sanatan or Mahaprabhu. So he goes to Bengal, and then after being in Bengal for a short time, he goes to Jagannath Puri. And in Jagannath Puri, he stays with Mahaprabhu, and for 10 months. And this is the first chapter of Antya-lila, and it's such a revelation of the sweetness. It's an introduction, really, to the latter part of the Antya-lila, where Mahaprabhu reveals the deepest possible ecstasy in separation that it is possible. So Rupa Goswami stays there for 10 months and then goes back to Bengal, and he spends 1 year in Bengal, finishing up his affairs. But at that time, after almost 1 year, Sanatana Goswami goes to Vrindavan, and Rupa Goswami, he arrives Sanatana Goswami goes to Jagannath Puri to see Mahaprabhu, and he misses Sanatana Goswami. The technology has caused me to go in circles a bit. But when Sanatana Goswami arrives in Jagannath Puri, which is the beginning of the 4th chapter of Antya-lila, Rupa Goswami, after spending 10 months in Jagannath Puri with Mahaprabhu, leaves. So what we would like to discuss, or what the 4th chapter of Antya-lila discusses in such a wonderful way, is the path that Mahaprabhu, that Srila Sanatana Goswami takes to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And his time, his 1 year in Jagannath Puri, we would think that it would be the most wonderful, sweetest, simplest, exaltedest time, and it is those things, but it is very difficult for Sanatana Goswami. It is extremely difficult. And that reminds me so much that when we are young devotees and we have sweet balls and stars in our eyes, we may imagine that our road back to Vrindavan will be carefree, it will be simple, it will be straight. And perhaps it is for some aspiring devotees. But the path that Sanatana Goswami experienced on his journey from Vrindavan until his return to Vrindavan is far, far from easy. Rather, it was filled with difficult, painful tests. And these tests are just suitable to offer us relevant practical instructions on how to deal with the tests that we too must face on our journey home to Vrindavan. And I found these things, what is in there? There was layers and layers and layers and layers. And I just, due to my own limitation in consciousness, just get a little below the surface. But there's layers of depth and sweetness. So it's quite an adventure-filled journey home. And we have the fortune of not having to travel that journey alone. We have the association of devotees, and not only that, also that we can be accompanied by Sanatana Goswami, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, Srila Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Haridas Thakur, and Srila Prabhupada, as we learn from Sanatana Goswami as he travels from Vrindavan to Jagannath Puri, and then again back to Vrindavan. So let us journey together and see what jewels we can find along our path. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Burijan Prabhu. We are excited to get these insights in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and pastimes of Sanatana Goswami. Journeying to Vrindavan is indeed very often paved with surprises.
Very often, sometimes, perhaps.
Let us now welcome Jagatarini Mataji with a very extraordinary title to her presentation this year, Vrindavan, the most dangerous place.
Wait,
Hare Krishna,
thank you.
Jagatarini Mataji ki jai.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to try to stick to my 5 minutes. So I started my preparation this year for the Govardhana Retreat by finding what I thought was a catchy title. Vrindavan is a dangerous place, when normally we speak about the beauty of Vrindavan, the sweetness of Vrindavan, and how Vrindavan is actually our home. And I began there thinking largely about the beautiful verse from the Nectar of Devotion, where the two girls are speaking, and one girl tells the other one, more or less, don't go and see Govinda because it's dangerous. So I started there. And as I went a little deeper into the topic, I thought first to speak about Venugit, or Krishna's beautiful flute song, and its magical effects upon everyone in Vrindavan. However, before I started to research that topic, chapter 21 in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, I stepped back to look at chapter 20, which is where there is a description given of the rainy season and autumn. Now, if I were to be honest, I would have to say that that was not a subject matter that had really I had never given full attention to that chapter, because it seemed a little bit geographical or something, a little bit, it didn't seem to have a story. But when I went inside and I started to read that particular chapter, I found that it was very, very beautiful and very powerful as well. And from that point, I started to look for something else to share, and I came upon Srila Prabhupada, who in 1960 wanted to use that chapter for his opportunity to get out of India. He was hoping that this was the time for him to reach out to the rest of the world. And just as I was speaking before about the dynamic tension between what we don't know, what will happen, and what's going to happen, he had no idea at that time that he had a particular adventure or future ahead. He was just working single-mindedly in the present. How can I get this done? How can I achieve this? How can I take advantage of every opportunity? So all of a sudden, I found myself almost, I would say, challenged or confused, because I had these different threads that had appeared, and I didn't know exactly how to string them together and make a garland. And one wise friend said something to me. They said that perhaps your confusion, your troublesomeness that you're experiencing right now is a necessary part of your preparation. And although I didn't really welcome that thought, I must admit, I tried to take it seriously. And I continued on with my preparation. And I have 3 classes, of course, to share with you, which I think you'll find very moving. And what I basically ended up doing was taking these 3 things and weaving them together. So the first one was that Vrindavan is very dangerous. And why? And the second one was this personal struggle of Srila Prabhupada's and the beautiful book that he composed. And the third one was to actually try and add into that formula something of the beauty of Vrindavan. Because unless we hear about Vrindavan, unless we get like you could say, a 3D image effect of what it's like there, we'll never be able to become so strongly attracted that we're able to find our way out of this world of materialism. Srila Prabhupada, in the 2nd canto of the Bhagavatam, he says, materialistic ego, that's what we all have, a sense of material self. Materialistic ego, or the sense of identification with matter, is grossly self-centered and devoid of clear knowledge of the existence of God. Now that sums it up. I think you might find that therein lies the most dangerous thing of all. And Vrindavan is inviting us. Take up this challenge. Come, hear about Krishna. Gain the clarity that you require to slowly but surely relinquish this sense of identification with matter. And I think all of us will agree that that's no easy task. And I guess you could say that we're all going to have to expect a good amount of challenges as we proceed in doing so. So please come and share with me the journey that I underwent and the beautiful outcome of that in these 3 classes, 3 presentations on how Vrindavan is the most dangerous place in the whole world. I'll see you then. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Jagatarini Mataji, thank you. We feel a little bit reassured now and ready to hear your presentation. Now I would like to introduce His Grace Madhavananda Prabhu. Are you here, Madhavananda Prabhu?
I'm here.
Yes, welcome.
Okay.
Please introduce your topic. Madhavananda Prabhu actually is continuing on the same topics for several years now, a series on the glories of Govardhana, based on Srila Raghunath Das Goswami's Govardhana Dashakam. So this will be very wonderful to hear more about Giriraj. And this time we have reached verse number 9, right? So please introduce, Prabhu, what you will be speaking about.
Thank you very much. Shri Shri Guru Bhyo Vaishnavebhyo Gauriyanatha Gauranga Giriraja Gopi Gopinatha Namaha. So I feel very privileged again to this year to try to help assist in some humble way Sachinanda Maharaj and Bhurijan Prabhu and Mother Jagatarani and all the wonderful dear devotees to help try to create some virtual online Govardhana retreat. This year, we're going to address a rather esoteric topic from the writings of our Prayojanacharya, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. Sachinanda Maharaj was just mentioning how important it is to meditate on the mood of a devotee, and by doing so, we take on the qualities of that devotee. So we want to do that in a layered way by looking at the reflections and understanding of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, who in turn is looking at the mood of Giriraj Govardhan. And in particular, this year we'd like to speak something about Giriraj's position as a devotee and what is his relationship with Krishna. I was reflecting when I was hearing from all the devotees that there's a nice letter Srila Prabhupada wrote on the 30th of August, 1968, which I think in a sense kind of summarizes in a way what we're doing today. Prabhupada wrote, he said, our business is to chant and glorify the holy name of Krishna. And wherever we may remain, Krishna is with us. Krishna is within your heart. Krishna is within my heart. So spiritually, there's no question of separation. Even physically, we may be in a far distant place. So we feel a little awkward sometimes doing something on Zoom, but really, is it that much different from when Srila Prabhupada was writing this letter in 1968, because he returned to India and he was writing to some of his new disciples in America? Is it so much different from that? At least we can see each other and hear something a little live. So the Govardhana Basa Prarthana Dasakam, there are 10 verses which are very dear to Raghunath Das Goswami. And those verses, they reveal the heart of Raghunath Das Goswami. We've commented previously that these verses are something like the echo of Mahaprabhu's bhajan in the Gambhira. An echo because Raghunath Das Goswami was there. And he heard and he saw Mahaprabhu's bhajan. And what came inside of his ears and eyes and permeated his being later on came out again in the form of his ecstatic prayers, and in particular this Govardhana Basa Prarthana Dasakam. So these prayers include the expression of his deep inner desires, his conceptions of Govardhan Hill, his vision of his own shortcomings, and his prayers for attaining his heart's desire. So for the last 500 years, devotees who desire to progress on the path of spontaneous devotion, they've recited, contemplated on, and made their hearts one with these prayers. So as Prashanta mentioned, over the last 6 years or so, we've taken 1 or 2 verses each year to Govardhana Retreat, and we've contemplated on them at the lotus feet of Giriraj. And in previous years, we've reflected on Raghunath Das Goswami's writings and the writings of our other 6 Goswamis on what they describe about as the identity of Giriraj. So in that research, we raised a question came up. Is Giriraj Krishna? Is he a devotee? Is he somehow both? And we found that Raghunath Das Goswami and our Acharyas has consistently described Giriraj as being Krishna, but Krishna in the mood of a devotee, something like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So then if we contemplate that point, if we say, okay, Giriraj is a devotee, then the question arises, which we'd like to try to address with the blessings of Hari Guru and Vaishnavas. If Giriraj is a devotee, then what is his particular relationship or rasa with Krishna? Because our acharyas have described that all living entities have a particular sthayi bhav or permanent relationship with Krishna, either in neutrality, servitorship, friendship, parental love, or in the conjugal mellow. So if Giriraj is a devotee, which of those particular mellows is his particular mood? And so that's going to be our subject, which we'll speak, I think, a little later today. So we'd like to invite everybody to please join us in helping us to create this online cave of listening and contemplating in the heart in Govardhan Hill. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madhavananda Prabhu, for introducing your topic. And actually, Madhavananda Prabhu's class is today itself. After a little while, we will be hearing the glories of Govardhana and the relationship between Govardhana and Krishna. Without further delay, we are going to have a little journey to another beautiful place of Govardhana. We are going to Apsara Kund. Apsara Kund is located at the southernmost point of Govardhana. And we heard that already in the previous video, that Govardhana at some point descends into the ground, and there's a beautiful kund there. So we will be going there, and particularly we will be witnessing moments of the rainy season.
Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. I go Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hi Bo, hi Bo. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hi Bo, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
While we are still meditating on the beautiful images of Apsarakund, it was quite amazing here, located in Vrindavan. While we were hearing the thunder in Apsarakund, it was actually thundering here. It was very amazing. So first class begins in a few seconds. His Grace Madhavananda Prabhu is ready to present on the rasa between Govardhan and Krishna.
Hare Krishna, can you hear me okay, Prashanta?
Yes, very well, Prabhu.
Okay, that looked like I said it was muted. All right, thank you. Such a wonderful presentation, so artistic and so beautiful, the devotees have put together. Thank you very much. So I should go ahead and start?
Yes, yes, yes.
We'll just begin with a few prayers then. Gora Graganya Gana Gotra Goloru Haram Goranga Gura Tama Gopyada Kopa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namami Uttama Adama Kichuna Bachila Jachi Adile Kakola Kahe Premananda Hemona Gauranga Hridoya Dariya Bola Bhaja Gauranga Kaha Gauranga Laha Gaurangera Namare Jai Jana Gauranga Bhaje Se hoy amar prana re Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya Prema Vidana Padama Pumata Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madgavirapi Gopala Sri Kuryat Kripaya Jadi Tadaiva Sambraya Pitva Risha Yustad Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunatapta Brajabala Bapahimam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyaevachan Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vrindavanankaya Tubhyam Goloka Molane Purna Brahma Tapatraya Namo Govardhanaya Cha Hantaya Madhurabala Haridasavaryo Yad Rama Krishna Charana Spadasa Pramoda Manam Tanoti Sahago Ganayostayoryat Pani Yasuya Vasakanda Kandamulai. So I want to thank everybody again for taking part in this program, both the organizers and the listeners. Both are very much required. So we're looking at text number 9, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami's Govardhan Basa Prarthana Dasakam. And I want to look back a little bit at text 8. Last year, actually, we spoke on text 9, but I want to continue a little something with that verse this year. But again, we look back to text 8 this year. Text 8 begins, Raghunath Das Goswami says, Giri Nipa Haridasa, Shreni Varyeti Nama, Mitamidamiditam Shri, Radhika Vaktra Chandrat, Brajanavatilakatve, Klipta Vedai Sputam Me, Nija Nikata Nivasam, Dehi Govardhana Tvam. O King of Mountains, from Sri Radhika's moon-like face was spoken your nectarian name, Haridasa Varyo, the greatest among all devotees of Hari. The Vedas clearly describe you as a brilliant new tilak decorating the land of Braj. O Govardhan, please give me permanent residence near you. So in this verse, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami describes Giriraj as Giri Nripa, or he's the king of all the different mountains. And he says that Shreni Varyeti Nam Amritam, that Giriraj's name as Haridas is nectar. Why is that? One reason he gives, Idamuritam Shri Radhika Vaktra Chandrat, because this statement that Giriraj Govardhan is the best of servants of Krishna came from the mouth, the moon-like mouth of Srimati Radharani. So we spoke some in some of our previous sessions about the ontological position of Giriraj and how we understand that. I'd like to review a little bit of that in our session today and go on and speak something about Giriraj as his relationship with Krishna. So I want to go on to text number 9 of Govardhan Basa Prarthana Dasakam. Nija Jana Yuta Radha Krishna Maitri Rasakta Brajanaru Pasu Pakshi Brata Sokyaika Dattahan Organita Karunatvan Mamuri Kritya Tantam Nija Nikata Nivasam Dehi Govardhana Tvam. The verse describes that Giriraj, he has this friendly rasa, this Maitri Rasakta. He has this friendship rasa for Radha and Krishna and for all their friends. And we spoke something last year about this verse and how Giriraj is the ultimate team player and how ultimately we want to establish as devotees Vrindavan communities, and how this verse gives some secret, some essence of how that can be done, and how Giriraj is not thinking for himself. He doesn't even need to have any fame. He doesn't even need to be appreciated for what he's done. He's just kind of in the background. He grows grass. And the cows eat the grass, the cows give the milk, and the cows get all the credit for the milk. But Giriraj is growing the grass. He doesn't get any fame for that, any respect for that, but he's just supporting everything. So Giriraj is Sokyaika Datta. He's the source of happiness to all the Brijbasis. The Brijbasis consider him like that. Another meaning is that Giriraj only gives happiness to Brijbasis. In other words, Giriraj gives the most happiness, we can say, to devotees who have this Vrindavan mood. So Prabhupada writes Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport to Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila chapter 8, text 19. A devotee, therefore, must be attracted by the behavior of the inhabitants of Vrindavan who live in a relationship with Krishna. The land, water, cows, trees, and flowers serve Krishna in Shantaras, neutrality. His servants serve him in Dasyaras, servitorship, and his cowherd friends serve him in Sakyaras, friendship. Similarly, the elder gopis and gopas serve Krishna as father and mother, uncle and other relatives, Vatsalyaras. And the young gopis, the cowherd girls, serve Krishna in conjugal mellow, Madhurjaras. While executing devotional service, Prabhupada says, one must be naturally inclined to serve Krishna in one of these transcendental relationships. That is the actual success of life. So amongst these different rasas, these 5 different rasas that someone may have with the Lord, which one or more are possessed by Giriraj? And how does that help us to understand this? Let's turn to a verse from the Uddhava Gita. This is from the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, chapter 12, text 8, where Krishna tells Uddhava, Kevalena hi bhavena gopyo gavo nagamrigaha yeni mudadiho nagaha siddhamam iyur anjasa. Krishna tells Uddhava that all the residents of Vrindavan, including the cows, the unmoving creatures like the twin Arjun trees, the animals, living entities with stunted consciousness such as bushes and thickets, and snakes such as Kaliya, all achieved the perfection of life by unalloyed love for me, and thus very easily came to me. So I'd like to turn now to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, Sarita Darshani commentary on this verse. And Vishwanath there elaborates on this in the following way. He says that the inhabitants of Braj are very, very special. And he says that their mood, their bhav, has no mixture of karma or gyan. It's simply full of bhakti yoga with madhurya, vatsalya, sakya, and dasya bhavs. And Krishna is saying they attain me in this way. And Krishna explains that the gopis attain me by madhurya ras, the cows attain me by vatsalya ras, because the motherly cows, they were feeding Krishna, especially during the time of the Brahma Mohana Leela. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, speaking the words of Krishna, he says, the mountains like Govardhana attain me by Sakya Ras. And then Vishwanath goes a little further in the purport to explain that the gopis in Govardhana Hill actually didn't attain Krishna, but rather they're eternally perfect. So that above statement may seem rather incongruous in the light of some of the other statements from our acharyas. The previous verse we were just reading from Govardhana Basa Prarthana Dasakam, where Raghunath Das Goswami reveals that this verse, Haridasa Varyo, from the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, was actually spoken by Srimati Radharani, Giri Nirpa Haridasas Shreni Varyeti Nama, that Radharani is giving Giriraj Govardhan this position. So in his commentary on the 10th canto, chapter 21, text 18, this verse, Hantaya Madhya Abala Haridasa Varyo Yad Rama Krishna Charanas Padasa Pramoda, very famous verse, which is alluded to in this Govardhana Basa Prarthana Dasakam, text number 8. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains in his commentary to that verse, which glorifies Govardhana Hill. He says there are 3 devotees who were famous as Haridas, who were particularly mentioned in the Bhagavatam as Haridas: Yudhishthira Maharaj, Uddhava, and Giriraj Govardhan. And this is also explained by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He says, Yudhishthirasya vatsalyam pritya sakyena chanditam. That Yudhishthira, he has vatsalya priti. But that vatsalya priti, sakyena chanditam, it's mixed with dasya and sakya ras. He has 3 different moods. Sometimes he's in vatsalya priti, he's older than Krishna. And Yudhishthira is worried about Krishna in the same way that a parent or an older brother would. That's vatsalya priti, or parental love. And other times he's thinking of himself like a servant of Krishna, and he just wants to facilitate Krishna in whatever way he can. And yet other times Yudhishthira Maharaj behaves like a friend. So this, Rupa Goswami says, is the nature of Yudhishthira Maharaj's rasa. In the category of a servant, we could say that Yudhishthira could be said to be Purna. We know from the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Chaitanya Charitamrita and the writings of our 6 Goswamis that Krishna has three aspects: Purna, Purnatara, and Purnatama. In Dwarka, Krishna's Purna, he's complete. In Mathura, he's Purnatara, he's even more complete. And in Vrindavan alone, he's Purnatama, he's the most complete. And our acharyas such as Jan Chandra Goswami in his Gaur Govinda Swami Archana Padati, he describes there that in the same way, the Lord's devotees are also Purna, Purnatara, and Purnatama. So in the category of being a servant, Yudhisthira is Purna, he is complete. And now there's Uddhava, and Rupa Goswami also describes Uddhava in his relationship in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Rudra takshodavadinham priti sakyena misrita. He says that Lord Shiva, Garuda, Uddhava, and others, they have this priti, which is dasya ras mixed with some sakya ras. Uddhava, he's addressed also as Haridas, but his position is even more intimate as a servant than Yudhisthira Maharaj. Uddhava, his relationship with Krishna, it's also dasya ras, it's mixed with sakya ras, but he delivered Krishna's message of love to the gopis, we find in the Brahmara Gita, the 47th chapter, the 10th canto. And therefore, Uddhava acted as a Priyanarmasaka, or a most intimate friend, because he was able to carry this message of Krishna to Srimati Radharani and the gopis. So in that sense, Uddhava is even in a higher relationship than Yudhisthira, and therefore in the category of being a servant, Uddhava is said to be Purnatara. He is even more complete. Yudhisthira is Purna, complete, and Uddhava is Purnatara, more complete. But out of all three of these devotees, Giriraj, he's not just described as Haridas, but he's Haridas Avarya. He's the best of all the servants of Krishna. There's different servants of Krishna, but this is the very best. He's a Varya. Because only Giriraj, out of all three of these, is able to fulfill Krishna's desires in all the rasas. Giriraj, he serves the devotees at Vrindavan, and we're hearing about in this verse today. In Dasya Ras as a servant, he serves in Vatsalya Ras. He helps to serve the cows. He serves in Sakya Ras. He helps to serve the friendship of Krishna and the cowherd boys by giving them a place to play. And Giriraj also serves the Madhurya Ras of the gopis by providing caves and places, intimate places for Radharani and the gopis to meet with Krishna. So therefore, in the category of loving servants, Giriraj is Purna Attama, Purnatama. He is the most complete. So I'd like to look back now with some examples from Shastra about the identity of Govardhan Hill. Giriraj Govardhan is described in many different literatures. We wrote some articles about this. We wrote a magazine about this. The Haridasa Varya, how Giriraj Govardhan is the best of the devotees. In the Garga Samhita, the Garga Samhita is an interesting literature, which I should give a little comment about in the beginning here, that sometimes devotees, they have some doubt about Garga Samhita because it's not quoted in different literatures. And some devotees in response to that have cited that, well, Garga Samhita is quoted by Sanatana Goswami in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, but actually that's incorrect. It's Sanatana Goswami doesn't mention Garga Samhita in his commentary there. If you look in the original Sanskrit, that was added by a later commentator. But still, we're presenting some evidences from Garga Samhita on the fact that the book is profusely quoted by Thakur Bhaktivinoda in the Pramanakanda section of his Navadvip Dham Mahatmya. And it's also, we find it's accepted by contemporary leaders of all different contemporary leaders in Gaudiya Vaishnavism today. So the Garga Samhita describes very clearly that Giriraj Govardhan is Krishna, but it also describes Giriraj as a devotee. Garga Samhita says that Girirajo Hare Rupam Shriman Govardhano Girihi, that Giriraj Govardhan, he's directly, Girirajo Hare Rupam, he's directly the form of Lord Hari, of Krishna. And there's many descriptions like this. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he tells Raghunath Das Goswami, Prabhu kahe e Shila Krishnera Vigraha in Hara Seva Korotumi Koriya Agraha. He told Raghunath Das Goswami, e Shila Krishnera Vigraha, that this stone is a transcendental form of Krishna. It's directly Krishna himself. But on the other hand, we also hear in a number of different places where Giriraj Govardhan is described as the best of devotees. And there are many, many different places about that. I'm not going to try to go over all that again, but just to mention that the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, they've written many different prayers to Giriraj. And in all of their prayers, they consistently present Giriraj only as the greatest of devotees. Indeed, in the Govardhan Vasa Prarthana Dasakam, in the very first words, Raghunath Das Goswami establishes that he considers Giriraj to be a devotee. He prays Nijapati, Bhujadandach Chapchabhavam Prapadya. Nijapati. Nijapati means that he's praying to Giriraj, and he's saying, oh Giriraj, Nija, your pati, your master is Krishna. So he makes some distinction between Giriraj and Krishna. But at the same time, we hear in the Bhagavatam, Shailosmi, the Bhagavatam, Krishna says that I am the mountain. But if we look a little closer at this, the Bhagavatam also says, in the 10th canto, chapter 24, text 35, that Krishna did this Gopa Vishrambanam. Gopa Vishrambanam, Krishna wanted to create some faith in the cowherd people in Giriraj. And that's why he explained that. That's why he said that Sailosmi, I'm none different from the hill. Sanatana Goswami clarifies this more in his book, Krishna Lila Stava. And he says that that Krishna, he says, Prokradrigo Mukhabid he Yagyadota Pahara Bhuk Gopa Vishasanarta Dri Chala Stulanya Rupa Drik. That Krishna, you described how the sacrifice, the worship of Govardhan Hill should be done, and how the cows should be worshipped, when the sacrifice should be performed. And he said, you assumed a separate form, Stula Rup, and you claimed to be Govardhan Hill, and you ate the foodstuffs offered in the sacrifice. In other words, he's saying, Chalastulyanya Rupa Drik. You assume this gigantic form, which is separate from Govardhan. And you claim to be Govardhan. Jiva Goswami in Krishna Sandarbha, he explains that sometimes Krishna, when he plays the role of being a human being, he offers respects to his devotees, like Lord Shiva, like Narad Muni, and like other personalities. And he says that in the same way, Krishna offered obeisances to his expansion during the worship of Govardhan Hill. And he, along with the residents of Vrindavan, offered obeisances to that form of Govardhan Hill. So as we discussed in some of our previous sessions, to look back on that to help us with today's topic, a very important way to understand a person's nature is we learn about their origins. And Vedic literature speaks quite a lot about that also. We want to know what is our family line. So there are a number of different stories about the origin of Giri Govardhan. and how he came to Braj. So there's a famous description how Giriraj was born from Mount Drona, the king of the Himalayan mountains. And later on, the sage Palasya Muni came and he begged Drona, please let me take your son to Kashi, because Kashi is a really boring place. It's really flat. And Drona and Giriraj agreed, but Giriraj said there's one condition, that wherever you put me down, I'm going to stay in that place. So Palasya Muni agreed. And when they were flying through the air, when they came to the land of Braj, Giriraj decided to stay there. So by his mystic potency, Giriraj, he caused the Muni to feel some urge to have a call of nature. And so he stopped, put Giriraj down. He did his business and he took bath. But then when he came back to pick up Giriraj again, he found that he couldn't move him. And so in this way, Garga Samhita describes that this is one way that Govardhana Hill came to Braj. A second popular version of how Giriraj came to Braj seems, according to our research, first appeared in a book by Narayan Bhatta Goswami, who's one of the famous founders of many of the sacred places in Braj. And he wrote a book called Braj Bhakti Vilas. And in Braj Bhakti Vilas, Narayan Bhatta Goswami, he says that previously in Treta Yuga, when Lord Ramachandra was present and they were building a bridge to Sri Lanka, Hanuman went to the Himalayan mountains and he picked up Giriraj with the intention to use him to help build the bridge. But on his way back to Lanka, he heard some Akashvani or voice in the sky that the bridge is finished, we don't need any more help. And so then Hanuman put Giriraj down. And at that time, Giriraj complained. He said, this is not good. I lost my opportunity. I was going to get the lotus feet of Lord Ramachandra on my back, but you put me down here. This is not good. And then Hanuman, bless him, said, don't worry. Krishna will walk on you in Dwapar Yuga. So then there's another account also in the Padma Purana, in the 80th chapter of the Padma Purana, where Brinda Devi is hearing from Narad Muni about the glories of Braj. And Narad Muni describes it that Kolpe Paratane. In a previous ancient age, there was some Brahman whose name was Govardhana. And that Brahman was a great devotee of the Lord. And on one occasion, Lord Vishnu appeared before him to grant him a blessing. And the Brahman asked the Lord, you please put your feet on my back and stand on me. And so then according to Padma Purana, that Brahman got Sarupya Mukti. Sarupya Mukti means when the devotee gets a form similar to the Lord. And that particular form that Brahman got was a form of Govardhana Hill. And then the Padma Purana says that understanding that Brahman was very hungry and thirsty, Krishna, Lord Vishnu, arranged for the Anukut festival to feed him. And then arranged for some rain clouds. And we know the story about that. Arranged for some rain clouds for that Brahman Govardhan to drink some water. And then there's another account. We researched this for many, many years. There's another account about the origin of Giriraj that we found in a very little known book called the Maheshwar Tantra. And this is cited by some of the Goswamis of Vrindavan. And according to the Maheshwar Tantra, in a previous Yuga cycle, Narad Muni dropped the jeweled necklace of Parvati, Lord Shiva's wife. And when that jeweled necklace fell on the ground, it manifested the form of Giriraj. So those are all nice stories, but they're lacking something. The stories, none of them explain the primal origins of Giriraj Govardhan. They only describe directly, they describe Giriraj directly or indirectly as existing prior to being brought to Braj. So there's two accounts that we found in our research that speak about the origin or the genesis of Giriraj. And the first is found in another section of Garga Samhita, and the second's in the Bhavishya Purana, the Pratisarga Parva, Kanda 4, chapter 25. The Bhavishya Purana gives a little bit of a strange story about how Radha and Krishna performed penances and austerities for 1,000 years. We generally don't hear like that. Sometimes the Puranas, our Goswamis have said, sometimes the Puranic literatures, they speak in a certain way to give certain types of persons faith in Gyan or Vairagya, etc. Just like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary in the 47th chapter, the 10th canto, the Brahma Ragit, he comments that in the 29th verse, that Krishna's message to the gopis seems like it's Gyan. It seems like he's speaking about Gyan Yoga to the gopis. But in actuality, Krishna is speaking like that to cheat people who are attached to Gyan. And at the same time, he's giving a deeper underlying message for the gopis. So similarly, our different Vedic literatures sometimes speak one thing externally, but there may be a deeper underlying message. So in the Bhavishya Purana, there's this unusual story how Radha and Krishna performed penances for 1,000 years. And then a brilliant effulgence came from their bodies. And from that brilliant effulgence, all of Brajmandala was manifested. And the Bhavishya Purana says that 21 energies came from different parts of their bodies. And those correspond with the 5 working senses of Pancha, Karmendriya, the 5 knowledge acquiring senses of Pancha, Gyanendriya. And then those energies, they turned into the 10 different villages, including Gokul, Barshan, and Nandagaon, Mathura, etc. And there were 10 energies that were born from the 5 objects of their senses, Pancha Tanmatra, and the 5 elements within their bodies, of Pancha Bhotikas. So then those 10 energies turned into the 10 forests, Vrindavan, Gopavan, Bahulavan, etc. And then it said that from the minds of both Radha and Krishna was born Govardhana Hill. The Bhavishya Purana says, Manasa prakriter jato, girya govardhano mahan, dibyam brindavanam drištva, paramanandam apasahan. Manasa prakriter jato, that from the mind of Radha and Krishna, Prakritir Jato, Jato was born Giri Govardhano Mahan, the great Govardhan Hill. Dibyam Brindavanam Dristva Paramanandam Apasaha. And that when Govardhan, he saw Brajmandala, which was Dibya, divine and transcendental, Paramanandam Apasa, Giriraj Govardhan, became very, very happy. So that's another explanation. I'd like to turn now to a 4th and final explanation about the genesis of Giriraj Govardhan as a foundation to help us understand something about Giriraj's rasa with Krishna. In the 3rd canto, chapter 9 of the Garga Samhita, it describes how Radha and Krishna and the gopis performed Ras Leela. And that Ras Leela was performed at Chandra Sarovar. And that time, Krishna, being very pleased with them, he offered them a benediction. That's Krishna's nature. He says, Yegatam mam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyaham, that I always reciprocate with my devotees according to how they approach me. So he asked the devotees, how can I reciprocate with this Ras Leela? And at that time, Srimati Radharani, not any of the gopis, but Radharani directly, she said, Jadi, if Jadi Rase Prasanosi, if you're happy, if you're pleased, Prasanosi, with this Ras Leela, Mama Premna Jagat Pate, if you're happy with my love, my Radharani's love, she's telling to Krishna, if you're happy with my love in this Ras Leela, Tadaham Prartanam Tvam too. There's a prartana. There is a request, there's a desire that I have in my heart. Kodomi manisi stitam, that I'd like to place before you. And Krishna said, certainly, Tatastu, my dear Radharani, whatever you would like. What would you like? And so at that time, Srimati Radharani, she told Krishna, Vrindavane Dibya Nikunja Parshve Krishna Tate Rasa Rasaya Yogyam Rahastalam Tvam Kurutan Manogyam Manoratoyam Mama Deva Deva. Srimati Radharani, she said that Vrindavana Dibya Nikunja Parshve, there in the Vrindavan forest, in a very secluded kunj, on the bank of the Jamuna, Krishna means the Jamuna, Krishna Tate Rasa Rasaya Yogyam. May we have a place for the Rasa Lila. Manoratayam Mama Deva Deva. This is my desire, O Lord of Lords. So then Krishna said, Tatastu, so be it. And then Garga Samhita describes that what happened at that time. Tadaiva Krishna Hridayad Gopi Vyuhasya Pashyataha Nirgatam Sajalam Tejo Anuragashyeva Chankuram. At that time, while Krishna was looking at the gopis, Tadaiva Krishna Hridayad, from Krishna's heart, this very fiery glow came out of his heart. And Gopi Vyuhasya Pashyata, the gopis were standing there like an army, Vyuha, watching. They were the witnesses of this thing. And from Krishna's heart, Nirgatam Sajalam Teju Anuraga Shiva Chankuram, Krishna's anurag, his personal love for Srimati Radharani came out of his heart. And that personified, Krishna's personified love for Radha fell down on the ground of the Ras Leela, and it started growing into this giant mountain of Govardhana Hill with many caves and streams and trees and Kadamba and Bakula, Shok trees, and so many different Kunda flowers and Mandara flowers and wonderful birds and animals. Krishna's love for Radharani is unlimited. And so similarly, when his personified love came from his heart, as Govardhana Hill, it started growing and growing. And the Garga Samhita says it became 800,000 miles wide and 8 billion miles long. Quite large. And it was like another Ananta Sesh. And then at that time, Krishna, he saw everyone in Vrindavan, they were becoming a little nervous. They're all going to get squished by this giant mountain. So Krishna, at that time, he slapped Govardhan, said, hey, what are you doing? Stop it. Stop growing so much. So we find a synthesis. Rupa Goswami describes that when it seems that there's some difference between descriptions of our acharyas or shastra, we should look for a synthesis between them. So in this account, so the Bhavishya Purana and the Garga Samhita, we find a synthesis of these two conceptions of Giriraj as a devotee and Giriraj as Krishna. The Garga Samhita describes that Giriraj came from the heart of Krishna. So he is Krishna, he's Vishnu Tattva. Giriraj came from the heart of Krishna in the form of a desire to please and serve Radharani and the gopis. And similarly, the Bhavishya Purana describes Giriraj as coming from the minds of both Radha, the supreme devotee, and Krishna, the supreme Lord, which would indicate that Giriraj is simultaneously Bhagavat Swarup. He's Bhagavat Swarup, he's the form of the Lord, and he's also Bhakta Swarup, the form of a devotee. Something like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also Vishnu Tattva, but he's in the mood of a devotee. Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam. He's come as a devotee, and he prefers to be worshipped as a devotee. And our Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas say that we get something more from him when we worship him in that way. So similarly, we can worship Giriraj Govardhan as Hari Dev, as Krishna, the holder of Govardhan Hill. He's holding up Govardhan Hill in his left hand. And as Hari Dev, he can give so much. He can give Braj Bas, and he can give Krishna Prem. But as Hari Das Varyo, we can worship him as Hari Dev or as Hari Das. And as Haridasa Varyo, he gives something much, much more. He gives service to Srimati Radharani and the gopis and the kunjas of Vrindavan. He grants the position of being a maidservant to Srimati Radharani and to the gopis. So Giriraj is Krishna in the mood of a devotee. Jiva Goswami, he's given some wonderful prayers called Yugalastakam. And he's described there, Krishna Prema Moyi Radha, Radha Prema Moyi Hari. That Radharani, what is Radharani made out of? Radharani is made out of pure love for Krishna, and Krishna is made out of pure love for Radha. And he goes on to say, Krishna Chitta Stita Radha, Radha Chitta Stito Hari. That Radharani, she's fixed in the heart of Krishna, and Krishna's fixed in the heart of Radha. So Giriraj, as an emanation from the heart of Krishna, it also indicates the presence of Radha, who is eternally situated in Krishna's heart. You can't separate Radharani from Krishna. And in particular, according to the Garga Samhita, Giriraj is Krishna, his response to Srimati Radharani's request to manifest a place for the Ras Leela. And for that reason, perhaps, our 6 Goswamis, who are all in the mood of maidservants of Srimati Radharani, they focus on worship of Giriraj as Haridasa Varyo, as the greatest of devotees. And amongst the devotees who are Purna, Purnata, and Purnatama, Giriraj in this way is Purnatama. He gives the topmost thing. In the course of our research for 20 years, we worked on this magazine. We analyze another question. Sometimes devotees, they ask, there's some controversy. Is it okay to worship Giriraj, Govardhana, and Shilas as Radharani or as Balaram? And sometimes they would cite some verses from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Brajriti Chintamani, chapter 3, text 10 to 11, to support their conception. To our knowledge, these are the only statements from Shastra or Acharyas that even remotely indicate any worship of Giriraj as Radharani or as Balaram. And the verse describes Jamurada Gavararam, Jamurada Gavararam Niriksha, Krishna Ragajoram, Prisanu Bhajadihi, Duram Prayati, Spatiko Chayantat, Krishna Grajo Trityapi Sapi Yatra. That while walking on Govardhan Hill, sometimes Balaram, he sees some golden stones. And if he sees some golden stones, he thinks, oh, the daughter of Maharaj Vrishabhanu must have walked here. Krishna Grajo, that means Balaram. If he sees those Jamunadi Grava, and he sees those golden stones, then he thinks, Yam Vrishabhanu Jadihi. This must be the daughter of Vrishabhanu Maharaj. She must have walked here before me. And he changes course because he doesn't want to run into Radharani because it would be awkward. And similarly, in the same way, if Radharani sees some spatika, some crystal stones on Govardhan Hill, some white stones, she thinks, oh, Balaram must have just walked here before me. And she changes her course. But we should contemplate on these verses very carefully. We spoke with many different sadhus, our Guru Maharaj, about this subject. First of all, it doesn't say that Balaram identified the golden Shilas as Radha, nor that Radharani identified the white Shilas as Balaram. Rather, it says that they reminded them of those personalities. So, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, moreover, he says when he speaks about these verses, he says, Vida Buddhi, there was some mistakenness in the mind. It's not that they were correct. He says that Radharani was Kanta Brahmat. She had some illusion of these Shilas. Right? So Rupa Goswami describes that sometimes under the influence of Yoga Maya, sometimes even Krishna and Radharani, they experience the so-called fault of Brahma or illusion. And so there's really nothing in either verse that indicates that some Shilas are Radha or Balaram. So we have friends who like to worship Giriraj in this way. And they requested us if we could find some support for that. We couldn't find actually any historical support or any shastric support, but we did find some philosophical support and some support for this idea around Vrindavan, around Govardhan, which we found very interesting. The Bhagavatam describes in the third canto, Tat Tad Vapu Pranayase Sadhanu Grahaya, that Krishna, this is Krishna's nature, Tat Tad Vapu Pranayase Sadhanu Grahaya, that he manifests a form according to whatever the devotees are thinking of. So that's the nature of Krishna. The Bhagavatam also says, Bahut Murtika Murtikam, although Krishna is one, he becomes many. So in the same way, the Lord is one, but he becomes many according to the mood of his devotees. And we see that sometimes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's Vishnu Tattva, who's the Lord, sometimes he manifested the mood of Balaram. And he said, give me some Varuni drink. I want to drink Varuni. And other times, Advaita Charja and other devotees, it says, Deki Ramaka, they saw Mahaprabhu in the mood of Balaram. They saw him with the form of Balaram, with a golden plow in his hands. Again, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the 8th chapter of Madhya Lila, we hear how on one occasion, Mahaprabhu, he was hearing some prayers by a Shiva Bhakta, a devotee of Lord Shiva. And at that time, hearing those prayers, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifested the mood of Lord Shiva. And it said there, Hunkara Koriya Bhole, Muni Se Shankar. He started shouting very loudly, I am Shankar, I am Shankar. He climbed on top of the shoulders of that devotee. And Hunkara means very loudly. Koriya Bhole, very loudly, he called out, Muni Se Shankar, I am Lord Shiva. So, and then Vrindavan Das Thakur, speaking about this pastime, he says that the devotees, they saw Mahaprabhu looking like Lord Shiva with dreadlocks and the horn and the domu drum. Lochan Das Thakur tells the same story in Chaitanya Mangal. Similarly, here in Jagannath Puri, where we're fortunate to stay, Lord Jagannath sometimes takes on the mood of his devotee. After the Snan Purnima, when Lord Jagannath has his public bath, he accepts what's called the Hati Vesh. Hati means an elephant. He dresses up in the mood of Ganesh. But the devotees, they don't think that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has become Balaram or Shiva, nor do they consider that Lord Jagannath has become Ganesh. They consider that Mahaprabhu and Jagannath have manifested the mood of their devotees in this pastimes. So in a similar way, it's certainly possible for Krishna as Govardhan to appear to different devotees in different ways. And there's many different statements in Shastra like that, as we were reading earlier from the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam, that it's described, Tad Vapu Pranayase Sadhanugrahaya, that the Lord manifests a form according to the mood of his devotees. Now, some people, they become disturbed if we say that Jagannath dresses like Lord Ganesh, and they consider that this is philosophically incorrect. They call that Brahma Parinamavada. Brahma Parinamavada means that the Supreme Lord, or Brahman, Parinama, has some transformation, and we don't accept that. But the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we don't consider that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is having his Brahma Parinamavada when he adopts the mood of Lord Shiva, his devotee, or sometimes he also adopted the mood of Prahlad Maharaj or Dhruva Maharaj, or so many different devotees. We don't consider that to be faulty. We don't consider that Mahaprabhu has become that devotee, but he's taken on a particular mood. So also we found that at Govardhan Hill, there are many different Shilas which have been worshipped for a long, long time in the mood of a devotee. There's some Shilas we found they worship as Hanuman. It looks like Hanuman. And there's some which look like Ganesh, Govardhan Shilas, and they worship him as Ganesh. And there's some tradition like that. But it's not that they think that this is Ganesh, or this is Hanuman. Rather, they think that Giriraj is now in the mood of Hanuman, or Giriraj is now in the mood of Ganesh, or Giriraj is in the mood of Lord Shiva. There's also one local Pandit showed us Govardhan Shila on Govardhan Hill, which looks like a Shiv Linga. And they worship him like that, but they don't consider, again, that Giriraj has become Shiva. They consider that he's in a particular mood. So Giriraj Govardhan is Krishna. He's Vishnu Tattva, but like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like Lord Nityananda, like Advaita Acharya, like Balaram, Lakshman, and like Ananta Sesh, he's come in the mood of a devotee. So although Krishna, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he hankers, he wants to taste the superior pleasure of being a devotee. This is described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita in Antilila chapter 18. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes Bhakta Preme Rajatadasa Jagati Prakar Jata Duka Jata Sukha Jatekas Vikar Krishna Taha Samyagna Pure Janite Bhakta Bhava Angikari Taha Aswadite Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Bhakta Premerajata Dasa Jagati Prakar. That even Krishna himself, he can't understand the ecstasy of being a devotee. A perverted reflection we find in this material world, that the man, he has a wife or he has a girlfriend, but the wife is always complaining, you don't really understand me. Even in the material world, a man can't understand the mood of his wife. And in a similar way, Krishna can't understand the mood of his devotees. Jata dukkha, jata sukha, jata divikar. He can't understand their unhappiness, their happiness, the transformations that they go through. Therefore, Bhakta Bhava Angikari Tahi Aswadite. He came in the mood of a devotee so that he could taste those emotions fully. He's still Krishna himself. It's a very, very subtle point. It's a very difficult point to understand. Most people in the world, when they worship the Lord, they're worshiping him because they want something. They want a wife, they want some wealth, they want a job, they want a husband, they want a child. Some people want liberation. And they're praying to the Lord for so many, even Gaudiya Vaishnavas sometimes. They're also praying, please give me liberation, please purify my heart, or please give me love for God. But the devotees, their simple prayer, Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Va Jagadisha Kami Mama Janmani Janmani Shri Bhavatad Bhaktir Hoiti Kitwai. I just want to have your service. For the devotees, that service is the topmost thing. And that service is so wonderful, is so ecstatic, that even the Supreme Personality of Godhead wants to experience it. Again, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kaviraj Goswami is described. Bhakta Bhava Angikari Balaram Lakshman Advaita Nityananda Sesha Sankarshan Krishna Madhuja Rasam Rita Koripan Se Suke Mata Kichu Nahi Jane An Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. The Bhakta Bhava Angikari Balaram Lakshman Advaita Nityananda Sesha Sankarshan, all these manifestations of the Lord, they're in the mood of a devotee. Balaram, Lakshman, Advaita Acharya, Nityananda, Ananta Sesh, Lord Sankarshan, they're all in the mood of being a devotee. Krishna Madhurja Rasamrita Koripan, they're drinking that nectar of being a devotee. Say Sukmata Kichu Nahi Janiyar. They don't know anything else. Kichu Nahi Janiyar. They don't know anything other than that happiness. Avatara Ganyara Bhakta Bhave Adikar Bhakta Bhava Hoite Adika Sukha Nahi Aaye. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Again, Kaviraj Goswami says, Avatar Ghanira Bhakta Bhava Adhikar, amongst all the different avatars, the Adhikar, Avatar Gana, they all have the Adhikar to taste Bhakta Bhav. A very amazing thing. This is a very, very subtle thing. Most people in the world, they're praying for their own benefit. But very few people, they do bhajan for the pleasure of someone else. Krishna Tate Bhaji Koda Guru Sevan. The Chaitanya Charitamrita says that my Guru Seva is my Krishna bhajan. My Krishna bhajan actually is my Guru Seva. I'm doing that Krishna bhajan for the pleasure of my Guru Dev. We see this in the Gambhira. Sarup Damodar and Roy Ramananda are doing bhajan in kirtan, but they're not doing it for their own benefit. They're doing it for the pleasure of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this is what the gopis of Vrindavan do. When Radharani is feeling separation from Krishna, and the gopis, they come together and they do Krishna kirtan. They don't come and chant Radhe, Radhe, Radhe. If they do that, then Radharani will say, stop that, don't make so much noise. Chant Krishna, Krishna. And by chanting Krishna's name, the gopis get so much pleasure. So that kirtan of the gopis for the pleasure of Radharani, that's the kirtan of our sampradaya, which our acharyas are doing. Our kirtan is a very, very amazing series of prayers because it's not, unlike any other prayers we find in the world, it's not for the benefit of the person who offering the prayers, but it's for the pleasure of the Lord himself. Prabhupada writes in the purport to this previous verse we just sang from Chaitanya Charitamrita. He says, all the different incarnations of Lord Vishnu have the right to play the roles of servitors of Lord Krishna by descending as devotees. When an incarnation gives up the understanding of his Godhead and plays the part of a servitor, he enjoys a greater taste of transcendental mellows than when he plays the part of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's Adi Lila chapter 6, text 111 in Prabhupada's purport. So that's the nature of the Lord himself. The Lord gets more pleasure by being a devotee. So although Giriraj is Krishna, Girirajo Hare Rupam Shriman Govardhana Girihi, he's directly Krishna himself. He's in the mood of a devotee. Hantaya Madhya Abala Haridas Savaryo. Srimati Radharani personally says Giriraj is the greatest of devotees. So according to an individual's mood, they may worship Giriraj in different ways, but there's a difference in the result. There's a reason why our acharyas, our 6 Goswamis especially, repeatedly stress his worship as a devotee. Prabhupada, he describes the merciful nature of a devotee in one lecture he gave in Los Angeles on the 30th of December, 1968. He said, a devotee is more kind than God. A devotee is more kind than God. A devotee is more merciful than God himself. We should always remember this. So we can worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Krishna. We can worship Giriraj as Krishna, as Haridev. And there's no fault in that because they're Vishnu Tattva. But our acharyas have recommended that we worship them in the mood of a devotee because they give something more. In his Govardhanashtakam prayers, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his final verse of his prayers describes this. Vina bhavet kim haridasa varyo padashrayam bhakti ratashrayami yameva swaprema nijasayo shri govardhano me abhishatam abhishtam. He says, Vina means without. Unless we take shelter of Giriraj as Haridasa Varya, the best of servants of Krishna, then Padashrayam Bhaktiratashayami, we can't get the love that he has. What is the love that Giriraj has? This is a topic of our discussion today. Giriraj is the greatest of devotees, and he's come in the mood of a servant. He's Haridasa Varya. He's come in the mood of a friend, but it's not an ordinary friend. Amongst the different servants of Krishna, we find that Yudhishthira Maharaj is Purna, he's complete, but higher than Yudhishthira Maharaj is Uddhava, who's Purnatara, because Uddhava, he's like a Priyanarma Saka, or in his friendship with Krishna, he also goes to meet with the gopis. But amongst all those servants, only Giriraj is addressed as Haridasa Varyo, because in his relationship with Krishna, he's Krishna himself, but he's Krishna wanting to serve Srimati Radharani and wanting to serve all the gopis. So Giriraj, as described in this verse that we're looking at today, this 9th verse from the Govardhana Basa Pratana Dasakam, is described Nija Jana Yuta Radha Krishna Maitri Rasakta. The Giriraj, he has this friendship for Radha and Krishna. But that friendship is not just an ordinary friendship of ordinary Sakya Ras. He's not like any other type of Sakya Bhav, because Giriraj is both directly Krishna and he's a devotee. And Giriraj is facilitating all the different rasas of Vrindavan, as this verse is describing today. Nija Jana Yuta Radha, Krishna Maitri Rasakta, Brajanadu Pasupakshi, Brata Sokyaika Dataha, Aganita Karunatvam, Mamuri Krityatantam, Nijanikata Nibasam, Dehi Govardhana Tvam. I'll read the translation. Imbued with friendly rasa for Radha and Krishna, along with their friends, O Govardhan, you are an unparalleled giver of happiness to the groups of men, animals, and birds that take shelter of you, O Govardhan. Embracing me and considering me as one of your own, please give me permanent residence near you. And we were also speaking previously about the commentary of Baladi Vidyabhushan, accredited to Baladi Vidyabhushan on this verse. And he gives two different meanings according to the difference in the Sandhi. Sandhi means how you break up the Sanskrit words. Nija Nikata Nivasam Dehi Govardhana Tvam, which we just read. That when you separate these two words, Govardhan and Tvam, it means please grant me residence near you. But if you put the two words together, then it means that Govardhan Attva. I want to have the Attva. What is the Attva? The Attva is a word in Sanskrit. We say Vaishnavatva or Dasattva, the quality of being a Vaishnava, the quality of being a servant. So Govardhan Attva means the quality that you have, Giriraj, or I can serve you, and I can do service for Radha and Krishna in such an intimate way. And this is the mood of the maidservants of Srimati Radharani. Therefore, our 6 Goswamis, they worship Giriraj Govardhan as Haridas and not as Haridev. They don't worship him as Krishna in their prayers and their conception. Rather, they worship him as a devotee. But sometimes, just as the gopis are speaking to each other, in this famous verse is there from the 10th canto, Hantaya Madhara Bala Haridasa Varyo Yad Rama Krishna Charana Sparisa Pramoda. When they glorify Govardhan Hill, they say he's Haridasa Varyo, he's the best of devotees, and yet Rama Krishna and Balaram are walking on Govardhan Hill. So why are the gopis speaking about Balaram with Krishna? The gopis become shy when Balaram is there with Krishna. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that the gopis are trying to hide their love. And so they're saying one thing, but they're meaning another thing. Just as we were mentioning earlier, that Krishna, in his message to the gopis in the Brahma Ragit, in the 47th chapter of the 10th canto, he speaks what appears to be Gyan Yoga. And certain people will understand it in that way. But actually, he's speaking something much, much deeper for the benefit of the Braj Gopikas. So similarly, sometimes our acharyas, they worship Giriraj in public way as Krishna, because that's much easier to understand. But when we see their inner conception of Raghunath Das Goswami, in his Govardhana Basa Pratana Dasakam, we read the prayers of Rupa Goswami to Giriraj, and Sanatana Goswami, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, they all describe Giriraj as a devotee. Vina bhavet kim haridasa varyo. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, unless we worship him as a devotee, you can't get that devotion, that mood that he has himself. And what is that mood again? Giriraj is Krishna, but he's in the mood of a servitor. Giriraj is Krishna's personified love for Radha. He's Krishna's love, which came from Krishna's heart in response to Radharani's request to make a Ras Leela Stali. In other words, Radharani requested Krishna, you please make some facility whereby you and we can come together and we can perform the Ras Leela. So Krishna, in the mood of a servant, in the mood of a maidservant to Srimati Radharani, manifests that place. And this is the same mood that our 6 Goswamis have in worshiping Giriraj Govardhan. These are some of the many different things we are contemplating on for many, many years, for over 20 years, putting together this Govardhan magazine. I hope this answers some of the questions some of the devotees may have. I'd like to leave a little time, I hope it's enough time, for some questions or reflections if anybody has. I realize, I beg apology to all of the translators. I hope that none of them fell over dead trying to keep up with us and are trying to translate what we're doing. I felt a little need to run quickly. I mean, already we spoke about this verse last year, but we felt the need to speak about it some more time. And we had tried to cram all of this thing into 1 hour. I hope that the devotees can understand and appreciate this. If you'd like to try to understand something more about it, I would recommend you can try to get our magazine, Shri Krishna Katamrita. It's issue number 15, Haridasa Varyo, Govardhan Hill, the best of devotees. And you can read many of these things and contemplate on it a little deeper yourself. So if there's any reflections or comments, questions from the devotees, we can go ahead and take them now. If anybody's there. Hare Krishna.
I would like to call upon Sukavaha Mataji. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, Prabhu, thank you so much.
Please speak in the mic.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, it's better.
Okay, thank you so much for the class. You were speaking and you said that the goal is not love of God. You said some Vaishnavis even pray for love of God, but the goal is to be of service. And yet, if there's not a little bit of love, how are we going to remain a servant?
Right.
So how to balance that out, because I sometimes I pray for love of God.
Yeah. It's not a bad question, not a bad prayer. Similarly, also Prahlad Maharaj in the Bhagavatam, he prays that, my dear Lord, O best of the givers of benediction, Yadidasya me kamam vadams tvam vadadarsha bakamanam hiddasammoham bhavatastu vanevram. He's not praying for prema. He says, please take away my material desires. That's a bona fide prayer. It's a bona fide prayer to pray for prema, certainly. But this is not the valuable gift that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give. He didn't come to give just anartana vritti, nor did even he come just to give Krishna prema. But he came to give that seva. And Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu explains this elaborately in a very extraordinary way. He gives examples of Daruka, Krishna's chariot driver, and also Srimati Radharani. On one occasion, Daruka was fanning Krishna, and he started developing asasaptikara bhav, ecstatic symptoms, and he was crying and his body was shaking. And Daruka became annoyed. And he said, this is very bad. And he prayed to Krishna, please make these ecstatic symptoms go away because they're interrupting my service to you. And he gives some examples similar to Srimati Radharani, that sometimes she prays that these ecstatic symptoms may go away. So the goal of the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is such an elevated thing that although prema is very helpful for us, and indeed our acharyas described too, that sometimes the devotees also accept liberation especially a liberation to the same planet as Krishna, so they can serve him. And we can accept prema so that we can serve him. But we should always bear in mind what is our ultimate goal. Our ultimate goal is service. And that service is the greatest happiness that there is. Is that okay? A brilliant question. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because it's like, you know, it's a balance. It's not
Yes.
like one is over the other, but, you know, I need a little bit of love in order to maintain my truth. But it's not that I want that to overshadow my service.
And even in the beginning, we may pray that, oh, please purify my heart. My heart is so terrible. It's so bad. I want my heart to be a place where you can come and rest. So let me clean it. I want to sweep the room. But that's not my ultimate goal.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
We have a couple of minutes more. I think Vijaya Mehta. Please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. Such a wonderful class. I just wanted to share one reflection. I really like the point how you said that very few people do bhajan for someone else's pleasure, and my bhajan is for my guru's pleasure. I really love that point. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's our connection with our Gurudev. Here's my mala. In the same way that Krishna Kun, just right here. Okay, over right here, whatever. In the same way that a baby has an umbilical cord which connects to the child to the mother, so we also have an umbilical cord which connects us to our Gurudev. And this is our umbilical cord here. Our Japamala is our umbilical cord. And this is our connection to our Gurudev. And it's the thing by which he nourishes us. So yes, that's a very important point. My Guru Maharaj spoke quite a bit about that, something we often contemplate on. Thank you for offering some reflection. I appreciate that.
We have one more hand up. Madhavananda Prabhu, should we take?
Sure. You're the boss. If we have time, I'll be quick.
Not boss.
I'm sorry.
Sangeeta Rao, please unmute yourself. Are you here, Sangeeta Rao?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I'm just a beginner. I don't know much, but I have a small question. The question is, you said Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a Vishnu Tattva, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a combined form of Radha Krishna. And Radha Krishna stay in Goloka, and Mahaprabhu stays in Mayapur Dham, which is equal to Goloka. So how is it he is considered as Vishnu Tattva when he is same as Radha and Krishna?
Our acharyas have described that Radha Bhava Dhyuti Suvalitam Nomi Krishna Swarupam. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says this, that the mood and the complexion of Radha is prominent. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in the mood of a devotee. But Nomi Krishna Swarupam, he is Krishna himself. Actually, it's an interesting point historically. I can just mention to add a little controversy. This is a controversial point amongst some Gaudiya Sampradayas. Some Gaudiyas say that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a combined form of Radha and Krishna, kind of like they merge together. And others become a little unhappy with that. And they say, no. They haven't merged, but it's Krishna himself, Nomi Krishna Swarupam, with Radha Bhava Dhyuti, with the mood and complexion of Srimati Radharani. There's a small, subtle difference. And that place of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Nitya Mayapur, that's a compartment of Goloka Vrindavan. It's a closed compartment. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and our acharyas have described. It's a part of Goloka Vrindavan, but it's a hidden part where the Lord appears as in the form of a devotee. So this mood of being a devotee, this is a very valuable jewel that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and our six Goswamis have come to give. And we can see this in something in the worship and appreciation of Giriraj Govardhana. I hope that helps you, Sangeeta Rao. It's a good question. Thank you very much. Prashant, anything else? I can't hear you, Prashanta. I think you're muted.
We have 3 minutes more. We try from Shanta Vigrahadas.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you very much for the wonderful class. I just want to offer a reflection. Many years ago, I always had this desire to, obtain one Giriraj Shila, and I had the opportunity in Vrindavan, and I just passed on it. I felt that I wasn't ready at that time, and then as soon as I came home, I immediately regretted that. And for 10 years, like, this desire kept growing and growing until 5 years ago, I was gifted one Shila by one devotee. And there was always this dichotomy in my mind, should I worship as Krishna? Should I worship as a devotee? And it was unsettled. And even though I had the leaning towards worshiping Giriraj as a devotee, Haridasa Varya, it still, wasn't, settled. I felt today that after hearing you and your description, especially offering the renditions of our acharyas, I feel that that question has been settled in my consciousness. That mood of worshiping Giriraj as the best of devotees, I think that has settled it in my consciousness, and I just want to thank you very much for that.
Well, thank you, Shanta Vigraha Prabhu. I'd like to conclude with a short comment that probably the question I've been asked the most after writing this magazine and after making some of these presentations at the Govardhana Retreat is devotees coming to me and saying, well, should I worship my Govardhan Shila as a devotee, or should I worship him as Krishna? And my reply in general is that's a nonsense question. You should go to your guru, because we worship Sri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringara Tan Mandira Marjana Yuktasya Bhaktams Chanayun Jatopi. Yuktasya Bhaktams, Gurudevs engage in the devotees in worship according to the devotees are worshiping according to his particular instruction. And Guru may say you should worship him as Krishna, Guru may tell someone else to worship him as a devotee. Both are bona fide. Thank you very much, Shanta Vigraha Prabhu. I appreciate that. I think we're right on time, Prashanta.
You've done good.
I know it'd make you happy.
We are late, but not because of you. So thank you so much. This was practical and devotional, and lots of also deep insights on the identity of Giriraj and how we can relate to Giriraj, how we can take his his support is dhara. Dhara dhara, so the supporter of the earth, it says, he's dhara dhara, the supporter of the earth. And so he's the supporter not only of the earth, but as you said, he's in the background. He's the nourisher. So he gives prema bhakti to us in Vrindavan. Thank you so much. We're very grateful, Madhavananda Prabhu. And well, right now we are going to another place. Raj has many places, and we are having an excursion to Nandagram. Just nearby Nandagram, there is a place called Pavan Sarovara, and it's a very beautiful sarovar, which means a pond, which is connected to Krishna's two different pastimes of Krishna, including his bathing, taking bath in the morning, in the evening, taking the cows for drinking, and playing and meeting with Srimati Radharani and the gopis. So let us go immediately, an excursion to Pavan Sarovar, interestingly designed to take us on a day with Krishna.
Pavan Sarovar was the personal bathing place of Sri Nanda Maharaj while he resided in Nandagram. Nanda Maharaj, along with Krishna, Balaram, and the Gopas, would regularly bathe here. At times, Yashoda Mai would come and personally bathe little Krishna in the ambrosial waters of Pavan Sarovar. Each day, while returning back to Nandagram after herding the cows, Krishna would stop at Pavan Sarovar and invite each cow to drink and bathe in its waters personally. Sometimes Srimati Radharani and her friends would be bathing in one particular corner of Pavan Sarovar, and Krishna, who bathed on another side of the sacred pond, would swim underwater and secretly take the dust off the feet of Srimati Radharani and the Gopas.
Krishna, what are you doing? Don't be late. Take your bath. Your meal is ready. Don't let it go cold.
Navartmatadyat sakhibena manditam Nasau sakhayo navilasa vrindavan Nasau vilaso vihiyo nanarmasur Nanarmatadyan namude bhavit visha. There was no cowherd boy who did not play. There was no play without joking, and there was no joking that did not give joy to Krishna. When Sri Radhika heard that Krishna had gone to the barn to milk the cows, she left home on the pretext of taking her evening bath. She came to the garden on the bank of Pavan Sarovara, where she climbed on the wonderful watchtower with her friends. From there, she could drink the ambrosial beams of Murari's moon-like face with her chakra bird-like eyes, and she found boundless bliss.
Ganga, Tungi, Pishangi, आओ. Padma, Harini, Rangini, Kanjaganda, Ramba, Chamari, please come, come.
Hare Krishna. I would like to now invite all of you for Kirtan, but I don't know, can you hear me, Prashanta?
Perfectly, Maharaj. We can hear you.
That's very nice. That's very nice. Hare Krishna, everyone. We will conclude now this very first day of our Govardhana online retreat by Kirtan. I think those of you who visited the retreats in Vrindavan remember that a large part of the retreat was to do kirtans together. We would sit in the pandal and we would turn towards Giriraj, and as we did kirtan, I think first a praise of Krishna took place, but also something like, you could say, a subtle digestion of the subject. So I do hope that my voice will go along. One moment, I just need to make a sound. Krishna, okay. I want to request all of you who are here in this online kirtan to kindly put everything aside, because when we chant actually together, a beautiful vibration is created that connects us wherever we are. Kirtan is going in the first place to Krishna, but there is also something which happens between those who sing kirtan together. Krishna, becoming pleased with these devotees, appears in some way in their assembly, and as a result the devotees feel inspired to chant even more. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine. Please join Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Askatyare Shatarine. Everyone, Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everyone, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,